Okay, so hey everybody, thanks so much for coming to our talk today at the very first Women in Lutherie Conference. We're super excited to be here. I'm Julia Felix. I am a violin maker based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
I am Eva Broadway. I do repair and restoration in the Boston area. Can everyone see and hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
And we will be talking about tools in the context of a toolkit for smaller bodies.
So originally, this topic came up because many of us were talking and we realized that when we were first learning, it was almost always from male teachers, and they would tell us to get a certain tool to do a certain thing. For example, I was told right off the bat to get a Stanley block plane, and I couldn't even fit my hand around it. So if the tool isn't comfortable for you, this can cause a lot of frustration, discouragement. It can be harder for you to learn, and it can cause injury eventually and shorten your career. So if you find the right tools that fit you, you can be more productive, do more quality work, have a longer career. And also, if we create the demand for tools that fit us, hopefully more will be supplied for us. And we have an example of that in a minute.
So because of the subjectiveness of all of this, we decided that the best way to proceed would just be to check out as many tools as we could get our hands on. So we tried out a whole bunch of tools. And during our research, we checked for the general feel of the tools, the weight, the adjustments, and the mechanisms and how those worked, and what the tool seemed well suited for. I realized pretty quickly that so much of the comfort of a tool really depends on your setup and what you're using it for. So it's pretty difficult to say whether anything's just like definitively good or bad. That being said, there were a few things that just really seemed exceptional that we heard from a bunch of different people about. So here are a few examples of those things across some different aspects of Lutherie. First off, if you guys know me at all, you know that I'm kind of obsessed with this little finger plane now. It's, I believe, an IA Lutz brand finger plane, and I have found it to be just such a major step up from the kind of standard Ibex planes that a lot of us are taught to use. It's really easy to hold on to, and because it has these smoother, flat sides, I don't get like blisters or like red fingers or anything from it, even when I used it for a number of hours. And it's also really easy to control the adjustment of the blade because of the little screw on the top. So you can find these guys on the Diefenbacher Tools site. And there are also very similar styles of planes like this that you can find from Herdem and from other companies that you can buy on Cremona Tools and Dictum and anywhere else that you find tools like that.
Cool. So this is a Condit style bow scraper plane. It's lightweight, has really good ergonomic shaped handle, and it has textured sides. I don't know if you can see that in the picture, but they're not smooth, they're textured, so it's a lot easier to hold onto. And this can be purchased through Lynn Hanning's website.
And then this is actually a really handy hand-cut curved rasp for those of you who use rasps in your work. It's from a French company called Oriu, and I heard about it from a couple of different makers. It's really great for getting in the heel of the neck of basses, guitars, cellos, any kind of larger instruments like that. And it's really just nice and easy to hold on to and use. Oriu rasps can often be found through Lee Nielsen. This one would maybe have to be special ordered as it's not currently listed on their website, but you can also find it on Highland Woodworking as of a couple weeks ago.
This is our example of supply meeting our demand for smaller tools. We asked for a plane that was smaller than the 102 block plane, and Lee Nielsen started making it for us. I find this plane especially good for planing fingerboards. And just for context, here is the 102 that a lot of people have. don't know if you can see this very well, and this is the violin maker's plane. I can fit my whole hand around it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that plane. So I had a few qualms about adding this slide, but as the sort of unofficial, like tiny hand mascot of the group, although I think Kat might have stolen that title from me this morning, it feels like it's also my duty to make sure that we mention things that didn't work for us. So I just want to reiterate here that these aren't bad tools or bad brands by any means. In fact, Veritas and Stanley planes that I tried out came really highly recommended to me by some pretty well-regarded luthiers. However, we did notice when testing planes that Veritas block planes and Stanley block planes were just kind of enormous for our hands. I have pretty small hands. This is like my 150 millimeter ruler here. And, so I may be like 160 millimeters or something. I'm pretty small. And I just found that between the width of both the Stanley and Veritas block planes had this issue, very wide, and they also had really big frog. So just trying to get my hand on that, it was doable. They're usable, but it was definitely taking a lot of work to make it do what I needed it to do. As for squirrel tail planes, I was very excited about squirrel tail planes when I first saw them. While they seem like a great idea, I did try quite a few of them, and I really only found one that I liked, which is this little guy here. And you may have seen me posting some pictures about it, but it actually fits pretty much perfectly in my hand, and I love it. But unfortunately, it is, I think, a one-of-a-kind tool. I got it from somebody who gave me a bunch of their stuff when they retired. So if anybody sees one of those, let me know. But for the most part, I found that most squirrel tail planes have the handle either hitting like right about here or here on my hand, somewhere in here where it's pretty uncomfortable. And some of them even were hitting like way down here. So I just couldn't find any that felt very usable to me. I did meet another maker who had the same issues, and what she was doing was just clamping hers in a vise like upside down and running wood over it. So if you have one and you want to use it, that is an option. If you don't have one and you're thinking about it and you have small hands like we do, then maybe you want to look for something a little different. So during the research, we also learned of a few kind of tried and true type tools that were consistently mentioned as being friendly and well designed for smaller bodies. I'm going to let Eva talk about our first one here that I think most of you will recognize.
Yeah, the most popular block plane among luthiers, 102. Comparing it to, like you were just saying, comparing it to like Stanley models, I did measure them both, and all the Stanley measurements are in inches, so I have to try to convert. The Stanley model, most Stanley model block planes, because there's a lot of them, are like 1 to 2 inches longer than this one, which is like 50 millimeters, I think. This is 10 millimeters thinner this way, and they're about 10 ounces lighter than the Stanley. So, and it only loses like 3/8 of an inch of blade width. So you're not losing a lot where it counts, and it's lighter and just like easier to hold on to. Yeah.
All right. Next, we heard about and saw a lot of low angle jack planes, specifically the number 62, being used in place of like joining planes and other larger bench planes. They're a similar size to a number 5, but they have the really low angle blade and a different design that makes the weight distribution very different. They're generally a little bit lighter. And because they don't have, this is a regular joining plane, but because they don't have this big central frog, and just a big handle in the back mostly, the control ends up coming more from the back, and you can actually be pretty precise with your movements with it. So, it's a nice thing to try out if you're feeling like your plane is just way too heavy for you and you're having trouble controlling it. It's a pretty common model, so you can find number 62s through a bunch of different people. Of course, Lee Nielsen has a really nice one, but you can find them elsewhere as well.
Another really common suggestion that we were getting from people is adjustable height workbenches. There's a lot out there to choose from. There's a lot of different brands. Hopefully you caught the talk earlier today on ergonomics. Tamar gave a lot of great tips for how to figure out the height you need, and a lot of good suggestions. Some other workbench suggestions that we got from people were like old architect drawing benches and like map maker benches, because the top comes up. So keep an eye out for stuff like that at like estate sales, or someone got theirs on Craigslist, I think.
And then finally, if you're feeling like this whole presentation is starting to sound a little bit like a commercial for Lee Nielsen products, it's really only because across the board, we were just finding that Lee Nielsen seems to make pretty well-designed, comfortable to hold tools. They can be a little bit on the heavier side of things if that's an issue for you. But for the most part, it's a really good place to check if you're just looking for something that has a more comfortable handle. I've found that their handle designs and their frog designs seem to work really well with the actual weight of the tool, so that it's kind of, nothing's digging into anywhere most of the time. And a lot of people that we talked to had at least one thing from that company that they just really loved. So obviously there are a ton of tools that we could be talking about, but there's just no way we could have ever fit that all into this presentation. So we want to remind you guys of this wonderful tool list that Eva Broadway has been toiling away on here for so long. If you check in the Women in Lutherie group, you can find links to it. I think they're also going to post the links in the chat. There's a link to a form that you can fill out to add tools to the list. There's also a link to the actual list, which is what you're seeing pictured here. And you can browse it for highly recommended items or just get ideas from it. There's also a little box on the form when you're adding tools to mention whether it's suitable for smaller bodies, and you can search by that as well. So we're working on that, but it is up and running, and Eva's going to tell us a little bit more about it here.
Yeah, so it is searchable by different categories. It's not a website, so it doesn't just have like a search bar like you're probably used to using. So there are these little bubbles, like I have circled on here, above the category that you can search by. So this example is like, if we just want to look at planes, since we've been talking so much about them, that's a tool category. We go up to the top, we hit the little pull down menu, and then you can either deselect the categories that you don't want to see, or you can hit clear and just select the one category you want to see, whatever works for you. So if we deselect those and just select planes, and then the buttons kind of get cut off because I'm not great at spreadsheets, but the little green button down there is like the OK button. So if you hit that, then all you would see are the planes that people have recommended. And then, you can all this.
Oh, I think that you might actually be getting pinged. We had someone drop into the chat that the database is actually asking for access.
Okay.
I think that's everyone trying to contact you to, to get let in.
Well, at least we know people are looking at it.
Yeah, so then you can also, oh my gosh, you can also say, read like what people recommend it for. what they don't like about it, and then also if they suggest any modifications that they have found useful, then all that information is there.
Can people maybe contact you directly to get access to this tool list? So maybe once you guys are done, you can drop contact information into the chat.
Sure.
So we can handle it that way. So sorry about sharing that database link, but we can maybe work towards opening it up. And I apologize that you're going to get very many notifications now.
Yeah, I'll make it public, and we will repost it in the Facebook group, and I think it's probably going to live at my website, so that hopefully it won't be hard to find, and you can always just email me.
All right. So now that you've hopefully gotten a few ideas about some tools you could try and some ways to look up what might work better for you, it's a good idea to also just sit down briefly and ask yourself kind of what is and isn't working about your setup. Think about the ergonomics of everything, whether it's that things are at the wrong height, or that your handles are uncomfortable, or that something's too heavy for you. And keep in mind what you can do to try to change those things. There was that nice presentation this morning about ergonomics, but Eva's going to just quickly mention a couple things about that topic, and also some nice easy mods that you guys can do to make some adjustments on the fly.
Yeah, so that ergonomics presentation earlier was so awesome. So here are some modifications that I've made that I really like. You can see in the picture, but I also have it right here. This is my 102 plane that I use so much. And I just put some sandpaper on each side. I think this is like 400 or 360 or something. I just have sandpaper that's sticky on one side, so I just roll it on there. And it really helps so I don't have to like grip it so hard, and it's really relaxed my shoulder a lot. I don't worry about dropping it. It's really comfortable. So I love that one. There's also some of my gouges and all of my chisels. I just sawed off and put one of these rubber stopper things on. These are just like what you would get to go in the bottom of a chair leg or something. That right on there. And then now this like fits in the palm of my hand comfortably. Because the idea is that if you can hold something with your whole hand instead of like with your fingers, it's a lot better for you. So another example, maybe a better example, my little files that I would usually hold like this. I just got these makeup sponges and stuck them on the end. So now I can hold them like this, and like it's a little bit to get used to, but it saves you a lot of like stress on your. These are all tips that I learned from Cameron Robinson and Sarah Probst, so shout out to them.
All right, so in conclusion, while a lot of the comfort of tools is subjective to your body and your setup, there are a handful of options that seem to consistently work well for people that we've talked about today. Just to remember to always be thinking about how you can improve your setup so you aren't causing yourself unnecessary stress.
And keep checking the tool list once I make it public, which I'll do in like 5 minutes. Keep checking it. It's going to be up forever. Keep adding to it. If you find something that you really love, fill out the form and put it in the database.
And then finally, while doing the research for the presentation, I just felt like it was really invaluable to be able to just test out a bunch of tools, compare them to my own tools, try them out next to each other. So I'm really hoping to get some kind of like a tool share or a tool library going in the Women in Lutherie Facebook group. I'm also looking into the idea of a tool petting zoo, which is a name that Aubrey Alexander came up with, but that I really liked, where people could come and just try out a bunch of different tools all together, and jigs and all kinds of things. So hopefully we can get something like that set up in time for the next Women in Lutherie conference, which maybe will be in person. That would be great. And if anybody's interested in participating in that, let me know, because I'll probably need a little bit of help. Yeah, that's basically everything. Thank you so much to everybody who pitched in ideas and lent tools and filled out the tool survey and let us visit their workshops. It's all been very helpful and educational for us.
All right, so we have a bit of time and we do have a question, so we can do a quick Q&A.
Sure.
Corinthia, I would like to know if you guys have any suggestions for something to replace a standard issue cabinet scraper.
Like what shape, like the big rectangular ones, or?
Yeah.
It doesn't say, but I think it's like the big rectangular ones. Corinthia, do you want to jump in? Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Not really. I just like ended up making one that was real thin, and it's really easy for me to bend it, but I don't use it that often.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I use, but I do have like a shorter one that I use pretty often for a lot of different things. I pretty much only use that big square one if I really have to. But most of the time I have like a kind of, let me grab it here. Actually, I didn't take it out. It's not looking its most beautiful here, but I've got this little guy, and I could send you like a template or something, but it is a lot smaller. It's also a lot thinner, and it's not super flexible. We weren't really into like super flexible scrapers at North Bennet Street School, but it is more flexible. So it's like a little bit easier to kind of work with, I find, and it's small enough that I can, hold it pretty easily.
Yeah, same. Mine is like, it's small enough that I can use it in one hand and like flex it. I don't know if you can see like how flexible that is, but it's pretty easy to use. I've never tried a handle because I didn't like the idea of trying to make the scraper bigger. So I've never tried one of the handles, but I don't know.
It's Corinthia uses it for ribs, and she does not have a fun time doing it.
Yeah.
It sounds like I think someone mentioned it in the chat, and it actually kind of goes a little bit along with Lee Nielsen being pretty popular for this. But they do have a scraper plane. If you guys have thoughts on that at all, as like a solution, I don't know if there was any data that came in about that.
I did get to try out a scraper plane, one of the Lee Nielsen scraper planes. It is big and it's heavy. It's not like giant though. It's just, some of this stuff, it was kind of like, well, what am I used to using? And I had to like try to keep in mind, like, is this uncomfortable just because it's unfamiliar, or is it actually uncomfortable? And that one, I think it was just kind of unfamiliar feeling. It was big and it was heavy, but it seemed like if all you're doing is scraping with it, it should be pretty easy to work with. I'm not sure you'd want it to be sharp. I wouldn't want to like use it like for an extended period of time just because it was big and heavy, and it has the blade sticking basically straight up. So it's kind of hard to not like rub your hands on it in a funny way and things like that. But it might be worth a shot. I wish I had some ribs to like really try it out on. When I tried it out, I just kind of played with it a little bit and called it good.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. We have a couple questions coming, but I think they're more statements. So one person bought a bunch of like blue steel shim stock and use that. You can make a small scraper plane, a small box with the blade placed vertically. So those are some options for people. I was curious because I know last year was the first year I shaped any knife handles. Do you guys have a preferred knife handle shape? Did you guys get much about that when you were researching?
Yeah, I have actually discovered that I like like more edges on mine. Let me get my I also tried putting, I don't know if you can see, but like this one was kind of round, and then I made one that was even more square, and I liked having the corner in like where my knuckles are. It helped me like maneuver the knife a little easier. And then I also tried putting, I think this is just for like bike handles, this like rubbery stuff. I tried putting that on there. It didn't help as much as I thought it would. So it's more about the shape, but I like having the corners on here.
Yeah, I have a kind of a similar thing where I've seen a lot of pictures of knife handles. You know, a lot of people sent me like photos of their work and things like that. And that was really nice. I wish I could hold more things and just see how they felt. This is my knife handle. It's pretty rectangular, but it does have like all rounded edges. It's just that it's kind of like a rounded off rectangle sort of, but I do find it really comfortable. And the other knife handles that I did get to hold that were kind of more flat on, flat on one side and rounded on the other sides also felt the most comfortable to me. Again, it's a little bit like, I'm not sure if that's just because it's what I'm used to now or if it's because it's actually more comfortable, but in the past, I have found that like the really round knife handles are just like too hard to like really hold, like it's hard to like I feel like I'm straining to kind of like grip it. So I would recommend a kind of something a little more flat that you can really hold on to. And I know that when it comes to ergonomics, they say like, basically as big as you can stand it to be is ideal. So.
Okay, that's actually super helpful. I was dealing with some like hand and wrist injuries, and I had made my knife handles small because I thought that would help, but perhaps that was a little counterproductive. So that's actually very helpful. Thank you very much. We have in the Q&A, someone else wanted to weigh in that they have a non-regular octangular, ooh, how do you say that? Octagonal, there we go, knife handles. Some say they look a little bit like coffins, but they're super comfy and easy to hold and to handle.
Huh.
So that's always an option with it as well.
Yeah. And I feel like we could have done just a whole presentation on knife handles.
We could do a whole petting zoo just on knife handles.
Yeah.
Everyone bring all your knives and then I'll hold them.
No, that's great. And we're in the final minute. Do you guys have any final words or anything like that before we go on a short 5-minute break before our very last panel of the day?
I don't think so. I mean, I can't really think of much to say other than, to just be aware of what you're doing and make sure it's not hurting you, and that you're not just using something because that's what you learned to use, if you can find other makers in your area who are willing to let you come by and just like check out their stuff. It's really cool to like bring some of like your favorite tools and then try out like somebody else's version of that thing. It really like helps you kind of understand what's actually comfortable for you and and what's bothering you. So
yeah, everyone's hands are different. Everyone is a different height. So you just have to try stuff.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your talk today. Really appreciate it. Looks like everyone really enjoyed it in the comment section as well. So thank you for spending some time with us today.